This is a short synopsis from the time when we went in to live into the ghetto. Because, as you're seeing, they confiscated some valuables from us, and I'm trying to recover some remuneration from the Nazis, what they're taken away from us, because my family did have 4 stores in the Lodz, Poland, in the city of Lodz, rather.
Have you been able to recover anything?
So far, not a penny. They keep on postponing the dates. Then you file the paper, and then they're going to make up their mind to whether they will distribute any money for the valuables they're taken away from us. No guarantee for anything. So far, nothing happened. Maybe they wait for me to kick the bucket. That then have a good excuse. Too late. He's not here no more.
Well, I would keep your children on it and see if they can kind of pick up for you. You just want to come and listen? Feel free to have a
I
seat.
still have a little time.
Oh, sure. Well, feel free. Have a seat.
You're not interviewing yet.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, sit down. Sit down. We're friendly. Okay, what we're gonna do, and this is what we did with Frida. We're gonna speak to you a little bit about your childhood in Poland, a little bit about growing up, your family. We're gonna talk about your time in the ghetto, and then we're gonna go into talking about Auschwitz and some of the Dachau, right?
Yeah.
We're going to talk about the camps, and then we're going to talk about liberation and a little bit about your life after liberation, what brought you to Memphis. I do have some of the information already. I know Frida mentioned you married in the DP camp, and
Sure.
you came, they assigned you to Memphis. So there is some information, having the benefit of just speaking to your wife. But I always find that even when we speak to husbands and wives that had similar experiences, and some that were even in camps together, their individual feelings and experiences were so different. So don't worry about repeating any information or anything like that. Everything, take the time that you need. I'm going to stop you at some points as we're talking so I can get some understanding and clarification. Sure. I'm wanting to know information about the camps, the ghetto, and your life, of course. But I'm also interested, and I find that people are interested in wanting to know other things. They want to know where your faith was during this time. They want to know what kept you alive. They want to know how you survived and what you were thinking. So think about those things as you're talking, because those are things that even I want to know. As a religious Jew, I want to know how you did or didn't hold on to your faith.
One sample out of 11 people in my own house.
So let's talk about your childhood in Poland.
Well, I lived in Lodz, Poland. I remember all of our lives. My family was well established in Poland, and I didn't know of any other places we lived anywhere. My father had a furniture and antique shop, a lot of used furniture. My brother, in other words, we had 4 stores in the city of Memphis. My other brothers had also furniture stores and antique shop. Before the war, after finishing public school, most of the people did not attend high school. They couldn't afford it, had to pay for it. And after finishing at 14 years old, people had to find a job to be able to help the family provide. My family, being in the furniture business, thought probably I'm also going to be in some kind of furniture business or some kind of trade. So I went to work for my brother. Our older brother had a furniture store in an antique shop on the same street, Sierpnia 3. I went to work for him as a furniture polisher, furniture finisher. They had carpenters made the furniture, and we had a shop where they finished the furniture. So I worked over for quite a while. When the war broke out in 1939, September 1, 1939, the war between Germany and Poland started. I was designated to be a watchman at the front gate from the tenement house where we lived, because our store was a little further back in the same address, the same street, but it was a one-story house where we lived upstairs. Downstairs we had the furniture store. And then there was a big apartment house with 4 stories high, where I was designated to watch at the front gate in case an incendiary fire bomb will fall, and I had sacks of sand trying to kill the fire. So in the middle of the night, that's the second night of the war, a guy on a bicycle came to the doors, went to house, wake up all of the people over here because the German army is coming in here in the morning. They order broke through the lines. Everyone in the able-bodied people should go towards the capital, which was Warsaw, and over there the Poles will put up a stand. Well, being of military age, while I myself have not been in military yet, me and my younger brother, I had a brother was 2 years younger than myself, decided to leave out. Of course, the panic at home, people leaving, people say goodbye, getting dressed. It was 12, 11 o'clock at night. I don't remember exactly the hour, but late in middle night. And we decided to kiss everybody goodbye and leave toward Warsaw. We didn't know what's going to happen. We knew that Hitler is after the Jews because we read in the paper that he prepared himself towards war. I also listened to the news. We knew that he promised he will not attack any other country. Ribbentrop gave the promise to the world that the English minister came back and he said, here's a paper, Hitler's signature, he will do no more war. But he attacked Poland.
And this was in
September 1, 1939, when the war started in Poland.
This is when you had received the paper, is what I was asking. When did he bring back the paper?
What paper?
The one that said Hitler signed and said he would not go to...
No, this was earlier. This must have been in 30, something like the 30. Hitler was already, it started in 35 when Hitlerism came to Germany. This must have been in 37, 38.
So a couple of years later he attacked Poland.
He attacked Poland, yes. Okay. He already had Austria, and I believe he already had Czechoslovakia, but Poland was the next victim.
Mm-hmm.
So
what did you know was happening, since Austria and Czechoslovakia and obviously the German Jews had already started to undergo a lot of the abuse? Did you know what was going on?
Yes, we did. The papers were writing all about it. Matter of fact, a brother from one of my brother-in-laws came. He lived in Germany, and he had a long citizenship from Poland. He was thrown out from Germany. He came to Zbąszyń, and they kept him in some kind of camp. So we knew that he is not a friend of ours. So after we kissed everybody goodbye, we went towards Warsaw. The streets were full of people. We could not move hardly, but this was the middle of the night. In the early morning, the airplanes coming down and started shooting at the people with machine guns into the civilian population. So we find that people realize that they cannot walk in daytime. We scattered, and we tried to go into the field, sleep in daytime, and walk at night because the flyers could not fly at night. We walked to Warsaw, I believe, for 2 or 3 days, me and my younger brother. We finally came to Warsaw. I forgot, about 60 kilometers or miles. I don't remember exactly what it was, the distance.
How old were you at this time?
I believe I was about 20 years old, 19 or 20 years
Your
old.
younger brother?
My younger brother, 2 years younger, was
And
17.
the rest of your family stayed in Lodz.
The rest of my family lived in Lodz, yes.
Okay.
Right after the war started, one of my older sisters, she had a boyfriend on the verge of getting married, so my father she wanted to leave, and she wanted to go to the other side. I'm sorry, this was later. This was later, after we came together. I'm sorry, I'm
That's
talking
okay.
about her.
That's okay.
I'm getting things mixed up.
That's okay.
But anyhow, I went on the road, and their flyers were shooting down people. So we rested in daytime. We came to Warsaw. The city was burning. The people in Warsaw said, "What are y'all coming over here? We don't have any bread for y'all." They didn't even welcome us anymore. They didn't want us anymore because they didn't even know about putting on a stand. Later on, we find out that that guy on the bicycle, that courier, was a spy. They wanted to create panic on the roads so the Polish army could not pull back, could not escape, because the German army at that time started the Blitzkrieg. All of firepower, everything city we approached was burning already. My grandfather lived at Warsaw. We came to our grandfather, and we stayed with him. He lived on a 4th-story apartment building. At the time when the war started, they were afraid to be in their apartment upstairs because artillery was shooting into Warsaw, that they punched holes in the building. A lot of people got killed, so they stayed downstairs in an apartment together with other tenants. We were so tired from walking, didn't care what's going to happen, so we went into their apartment upstairs. We fell dead asleep. I don't know how much later, because we were dead asleep. When we woke up, part of the building was torn down by a bomb. We had to walk down from upstairs on blocks, on ruins, come down from the 4th floor, part of the step was gone, stuff like that. So finally announced on the radios that the city doesn't have any bread. Please, all the people who came into Warsaw, go back where you came from. The lines are free and everything will be okay, because they're trying to get rid of us because they could not feed us anymore. Mm-hmm. They were getting artillery. After 2 weeks later, of course, Warsaw fell. But while they told us to go back again, we heard that our city is already taken over from the Germans, and we decided to go back to Lodz. Coming back to Lodz, we walked on the road. We seen German army on motorcycles, on all the kind of these jeep wagons coming. One time they caught everybody. They're taking everybody into a big barn. They said that somebody cut their communication line. You know, the communication line, they had cable wires all the way strung on the side of the roads. Partisans evidently cut their lines. So they accused all of us that some of you cut the communication line. And they arrested all of us. They put it in a big barn. They put out the rumor that they're going to set the barn on fire. You just imagine the people in that barn thought we're going to be burned alive. Well, this was dusk, and from pain and fear, we lay down and we fell asleep, one next to the other. It was awful packed full of people. But in the morning, when daylight came, they let us out, let us go back. And we walked back home. I don't remember exactly, I believe a day and a half, we came back home. The family embraced us because a lot of people got killed on the road. My sister told us every day they went to the cemetery to look, to identify bodies. They thought maybe we are dead by then. but we came back home, and we stayed home. The people in the city, the Germans, put out a billboard that every merchant have to keep the stores back open, make life back to normal. Of course, they caught people on the streets because the Polish army had horses. They needed people to try to tend to the horses. I got caught one time in the street. They taken me over there to try to clean up after the horses. I worked there a whole day, didn't get any food, but I came back home. Glad to see me back home. Everything was fine. So by opening up the stores, my brother, he was older than I am. He was afraid to stay in the store. So I stayed in the store in the front sometimes, my brother's store, and my other brother stayed in my father's store. My other two brothers, my sister, my brother had another store somewhere else in another part of the city, and also we had 4 stores. The Nazis came in to our stores, I said that in that paper, and they said they picked up stuff, everything what they felt like they should have. And they didn't even bother about paying for it. And I had to carry some of the stuff out to the jeeps, to the little wagons, military wagons. And if I didn't walk fast enough, I got kicked in my behind. So anyhow, this was life going on like this.
Let me stop you right here.
Time.
When I read this story, I'm always intrigued to find the righteous Gentiles wherever they are. And I found it interesting that you talked about one man that you remember was
Upstate.
a high-ranking military man. You
Yes,
said.
yes.
And what did he say to you?
Well, upstairs, he even actually contacted my brother. He was the owner of the store. He lived, he confiscated the apartment, on the first floor apartment upstairs above the store. He was an elderly person. He must have been a high official in the German army because he had a lot of medals on him, and his hat had a lot of brass on the gold. So he told him, look, I know that some of our people are misbehaving with what they're doing over here, but I would like to pick up some stuff from you, but I don't mind paying it, but don't charge me too much. So he did pick out some items, and we carried it off to his apartment. He was a real nice guy. He felt sorry what happened to us, but that's all he could do. I assume he must have been afraid for his own skin. But anyhow, that's how life went on, because from 5 o'clock in the evening till next morning, 8 o'clock, no Jew could have been found in the street. We had to be at home. One morning, my father directed myself and my brother across the street from our store in a basement, a large basement on that tall tenement house. We had a warehouse where we kept some of the furniture, old furniture, what farmers came and they gave us coal, they gave us potatoes for it, which we couldn't sell. It wasn't fit for a lot of people. And we kept some of that furniture there. My father directed us to dig over there in the basement a big hole to accommodate 3 cases of valuables. After 5 o'clock, must have been 7, 8 o'clock in the evening when it was dark, we carried the cases across the street and we buried them into that ground, and we covered the ground back up and put some furniture on top like nobody could identify them. So, and we told between ourselves that whoever is going to live through this war, at least we know there's some valuables back there. I didn't know what is inside in these cases. For a while, we used to get a ration while we still living in our homes. It was cold. It was like the war started in September. That must have been already December or January. It was the coldest winter I remember. In Poland, we used to have heat the apartments with coal. So there were, well, the stores used to sell the coal. People had to form a line outside and people picking up coal. Everybody standing in line. One morning, my father directed me to go out, running out of coal, go out and stand in line. 6 o'clock in the morning, I got up and standing in the line to try to get to the store to get line. I don't know how far I was in the line. People freezing cold. By 8 o'clock, before they opened the store, a gendarme came to trying to hold order in the line. So a lot of these Poles were so unfaithful to us. You there, you there. They pointed out the Jews which stand in the line. They throw us out from the line. The German, the gendarme, Raus, he threw us out and I went back home without coal. Well, luckily we were merchants. We gave the janitor extra money, double, and he brought us the coal. But what about some of the people who could not do all of this stuff? They froze. And our time was terrible. Till one day they directed us that we have to vacate our homes where we lived all our life, our stores, anything, and go to one part of the city which was the worst part of the city, like the slum part of the city, I would say, where they gathered all of the Jews into one area where we had, and they created a ghetto where they surrounded it with barbed wire, and my family was designated one room. At that time, I forgot how many people, because one of my sisters, she had a boyfriend, she wanted to get married, and she said that she's not going into that ghetto. She's going to go to a different city where they said they're not going to close the ghetto because they knew that they're going to lock up our ghetto. She was afraid that they're not going to let us out later. So she and her husband and one of my brothers went to a different ghetto. And one of my sisters make a quick marriage, and she married and she went on the other side because at that time, I believe, Russia already taken over half of Poland, and Germany came to a halt at the Wislica, at the river which runs all the way through Poland. Russia divided half of Poland to Germany, and half of Poland they taken over. So my sister, who got married, in a quick marriage, and she went on the other side towards Russia. She said because over there they will not come. But there was no time she came back home. She could not stand the communists over there because they were living in the streets. There were people from all over coming over there. She couldn't. She came back home. Anyhow, we got into the ghetto. I don't remember exactly. I believe in April 1940, I believe they closed the ghetto. The ghetto was surrounded with wires and gendarmes ever so often, and no one ever dared to go out from the ghetto.
What efforts did your family make, as close as they possibly could, to try to keep some semblance of family life in the ghetto? Let me help you a little bit. Some families had Shabbat services. Some families had reading groups. Some families had older men teaching the children religious history. Were you able to have any of these things?
No.
Nothing.
No.
And I say that in secret. I don't mean out in the open.
No. We lived in the ghetto. My family was designated a large room. I know we had the pull-up bed. I don't know what you call it, the little folding beds where we put up everything with how many people? My mother was still there, my father, myself, two of my sisters, I believe about 5 people were still with us in the ghetto when we went to the ghetto. And we lived in that one room. I myself went, the lodge was the longest working surviving ghetto. And I worked in a furniture factory where they made chairs for the Germans, also finishing furniture. My father was at that time maybe around the 50, 52 years old. He did not work. Every person was designated to get a ration. The ration's supposed to last for 2 weeks. Well, you could eat this ration in 3 days, and some people did, and they starved to death. The only thing that was free and enough is water. A lot of people taking that piece of bread they got, they crumbed it up and put it in the water to make a soup out of it, so to speak, so they have more of wood. There was no coal, there was no wood to heat, to have, because they're little stoves you have to, is trying to cook with wood and coal. So there were outhouses, there were fences outside. They didn't have toilets in homes like we have here now. So there were outhouses, people taking all this stuff apart to have wood to heat. We taken furniture, broke furniture, knocked furniture apart to have enough to heat the room and cook something. So, and the people who went to work did get a soup at the kitchen. We used to have a number where you worked, used to get a soup at the kitchen and a soup at home, the 2 soups a day in that ration. Well, a lot of people, we could see, dead people walking, swollen people up in the street. Some of them died in the street. Everybody had to have a pot with him in a spoon. You could see people that they have with ropes instead of belt. They had a rope tied in, had a pot hanging over here with a spoon. And because if you don't have the pot and spoon, you couldn't get the soup. Whatever you want to get, you want to get a soup. My father was a person which he couldn't go to work anymore because he didn't have it straight. He was a merchant. And so when people got liquidated, he taken some of that furniture from them, and he chopped it on wood to sell to people pieces of wood to light fire at the house. When he had enough money, he bought himself a soup, because a lot of people, even how hungry they were, they sold that piece of bread to buy cigarettes. Believe it or not, smoking was then a habit for a lot of people. But in the ghetto, we were 4 years in the ghetto, almost like a city, like the government. Rumkowski was the eldest of the Juden, was the chairman of the Jews, and he was asked by the Nazis to bring out so many people. They got to have him. And they had even Jewish policemen, the Sonderkommando they call it, and they had to bring people out to the liquidation to send them out from the ghetto. Where they went at that time, they didn't know. We thought maybe they going to work somewhere else or whatever. Later on, of course, we find out what they done to these people. Every once in a while, they made a sperre. They called this, everyone didn't go to work that day. You had to stay in the houses, there was a selection. The Nazis came into the house, and they shoot 3 or 4 times in the air. Everyone from the apartment had to go down, and they selected people. They looked at you. If you were old enough or young enough, you went with them. And the able-bodied people, of course, they were useful to go to work. This was going on for about 4 years like this in the Lodz ghetto. One day, they came, how would I say, Roskas. There was, I forgot how it's in English. We had to, they're going to liquidate the ghetto, that we're going to be transferred into a better place where we're going to have more food, we're going to have plenty of work, not to be worried about it. Really and truly, being in the ghetto for so long, because for us, the war lasted 5.5 years for the Polish Jews.
I'm going to back you up a minute. Just for a minute, I want to back you up.
All right?
Your mother died in the ghetto.
Yes. Yes.
Several of your siblings.
Yes, I left out some of the stuff.
It's okay. That's why I wanted to back you up.
Yes.
Your mother starved to death.
While we were in the ghetto, I had a 13-year-old sister. She was very developed at her age, like a grown-up person. And she didn't have the right food. She didn't have the right vitamins, because food, of course, supply you life with vitamins and growing stuff. So we had a doctor came to the home, and she said, well, all she needs is at the end of war, she can get the right food, because if she don't have it, of course, she died several months later. My mother also died from hunger in the ghetto. So I was left, myself, my father, and our older sister. When the Allied forces landed in Europe, I believe it must have been in 1944, and they came closer towards Poland, the Germans decided to liquidate the ghetto. Evidently, they didn't want any witnesses.
Let me ask you something. Your mother and 7 siblings, is that what you're saying, died in the ghetto?
No, some of them went to a different
Some
ghetto.
of them, okay.
I don't know what happened to doing it, but they're not here. After the war, I was only one survivor.
Okay.
Out of 9 children, father, mother, I'm only one survivor. After the war, no one survived. So what happened to them in the other ghetto, which they thought that this ghetto gonna be locked up, they won't be able to get out ever. So they thought that other place where they run back over there, because my brother-in-law was from a different city. My sister married a soldier. He was a soldier from a different city, so he said, let's go where my family live. Maybe over there they will not close the ghetto. Okay. So my younger brother, who was 2 years younger from me, went with them. So actually, when they liquidated the large ghetto, there was only 2, 3 people. The rest of, one of my brothers also died in the ghetto from hunger. One of my older brothers died from hunger from the ghetto. Chaim.
You were transported in 1944.
1944.
No, 1940.
44 from the ghetto. 1940 went into the ghetto.
Right.
In 44 we went out of the ghetto.
And you went to Auschwitz.
To Auschwitz.
Tell me about that.
Well, when they told us that in certain streets there should not be a person, because anyone is going to be caught in that certain area will be shot instantly. So we are afraid. They designated certain streets empty, Judenrein. Nobody should be there. So they finally almost got to our street. I told my father, look, we don't get any more ration. I hate to eat up that little food which you do have still left. Maybe I should go, because the Nazis made us an offer. If you're going to be transported to that other place, only everybody people will be able to work, get enough food deep into Germany. Maybe we'll survive. My sister said, I'm not leaving my father alone. I stay with him. So I put on my best clothes, my shoes, and went towards the train. They told us to go to the train, and also what they lured people with, they said, you're going to get a bread and honey once you get to the trains. And we got to the trains. We walked, of course, to the trains. It was quite a while from where we used to live. And we walked to the trains. We waited. I don't remember how many days. we got on the trains. There were cattle cars. They closed us up, and the cattle cars had a little window up on the top only with a little iron partition in it. Anyhow, for several days we were on the roads. The train stopped, the train started, and finally we find out we are in Auschwitz. They opened the doors, and there was a commotion. There was crying. People were running back and forth. They had Jewish couples and German SS people with dogs. We find out later one of the guys was Mengele, the guy who made the selection. He told people one of them go this way, one of them go that way. Of course, I was young at that time. I was able-bodied enough, useful for them. They'll send me to another side. Of course, my wife told me that she wanted to go with her mother. And one of the couples, one of the Jewish people who was his work to be working over there for the German, he pulled her away from her mother because she was a youngster. Her mother was already in the 50s, I assume, and she went to the other one. She never seen her mother again. But anyhow, we went over there. They're taking us into a large building. Of course, we were still dressed. I did not tell you, I forgot to tell you, on these trains, when we ate the bread and the honey was pitiful. It was burning with no water. A lot of people died right there because we were packed like sardine. They, from eating the bread and the honey, not just didn't have any water, but they have to exert themselves. People peed and all over. It was the stench terrible. People, when they opened the doors over there, the air was so good. But then the cry and the dogs barking and that was here, there. They made such a unbelievable. When we start crying, of course, it pulled us away. I went to one direction, were taking us into a big building where they told us undress. We had to leave all our clothes where you're standing. In groups, they marched us out of there without naked. And down they take us into another big, like a warehouse building, and they shaved us all the way. Wherever there was a hair, it was gone. Shaved us, that we're going to take a bath. And they given us a cold shower. And it was cold. And we had to run into another place through, I don't know how many feet, maybe 50, 60 feet away, into another place where they gave us supposedly uniforms. And I received a jacket and a pair of pants. A jacket with the blue stripes, you probably seen it, and I had a number. This number was my name. So
Do you remember your number?
I have on my leg to marshal, I believe 80 something. I have it written over there on that. I gave it a picture on it. I don't remember it by heart for a while because it's been so many years.
What was your job at the camp?
At Auschwitz, no job.
No job.
Lucky me, I had only 3 days in Auschwitz.
Okay.
They're taking us into where they distribute these uniforms, and down that they told us to run into a big warehouse with a packed full of people. We lay down on the stove from exhaustion, went to sleep. We heard crying, we heard all this kind of stuff. We didn't know what happened. But in the morning, soup time. We're going to get food. We didn't have anything to eat the food. They had a big pail of soup, and we had to form a line. In the line, I remember, was 7 people. The first one got the soup, and we had to drink without any spoons out of this soup. The people start drinking the soup. They all check, you had enough. Hungry people start fighting over the soup. The second one didn't get it, till it came to the last person, didn't get it. I was 3 days in Auschwitz, I didn't eat. Don't remember ever had a bite in my mouth. Nothing, but I was just from that train what I had, the bread.
When you were, let me stop you right now. When you were going through this, the starving, the transport, the crowding, the
Yes.
cold, what did you think was happening to you?
In a time like this, you are in somebody else's they'll tell you what to do and you obey. You don't know what you're going to do.
You think you were just in a daze?
You don't know. I was in a daze. We didn't know. We knew we left family. We knew who cared. The bad part about it, in the ghetto, while we were still with our family, when we didn't get the ration, we had a scale, had to weigh the bread. The parents should not get a crumb more than the next person. A lot of people kept the dead people, people who died, they kept them at home for 3 or 4 days to be able to get the ration for the dead person because they didn't want to tell nobody he died. So they have a little more something to eat. The bread, you might call it bread. We called it bread, but it was like a clay, but it was good. It filled your tummy. We ate stuff which is, it's not what today, but people would not even touch. But if you have an empty stomach, you grasp a straw. So in Auschwitz, I don't think I ever ate more than what I had on that train. Water was enough. But in Auschwitz, I don't even know we had water.
Did you pray?
And after 3 days, I believe, they taken us out in a group that told us we're going to go to a different camp. And I was transferred into another slave labor camp. I was transferred to Kaufering. And in Kaufering, over there, this was a camp where, for sick people, they brought sick people into that camp, and there were a lot of doctors. The doctors were Jewish doctors from Czechoslovakia and from Hungary. They had it so figured out to work against our nerves. Some of the leaders were Jews from different countries. They couldn't understand us. We couldn't understand them. They tried to make our life so miserable that they tried to disrupt, to make animals out of us. We became animals. So in Kaufering, there was a sick person's camp. People died like flies over there. In the beginning, I helped pushing a wagon for dead people where they buried them in mass graves. They had holes picked, they put chlorine over them, the white powder like a chlorine, so they will not have some kind of diseases coming out of them. And for a while, I was doing that. There was one guy over there in by the way, our camp was built with, we had a tarpaulin, like a little, you see them, you tell like Boy Scout, you're tarpaulin. In the middle of the road, they had dug about 3 foot back. We walked down on the bottom. We lay down back. They gave us a blanket, and we lived on the blanket on the grass. And this was our home in Kaufering, in camp. In the morning, early in the morning, they woke up. They gave us some coffee. Later on, they gave us a soup. And one person from this, I believe, 40, 50 people in that little place, tarpaulin, I forgot. How do you call I forgot.
Tent or a tarp.
A tarpaulin, but there's a name for that little, what do you make?
A tent? A tent?
A tent, that's right. A tent, that was missing. One person, each tent was designated the leader of this group. This leader happened to be a guy which I knew. He played theater in our city. So he knew I was singing, I was taking part in the school, in little shows. So he knew these doctors who was attending to all of these people. Wasn't everybody sick in this, but a lot of people were sick. So they had Jewish doctors over there. They were also part of the intern people. So on Sunday we didn't go out to work. You got to, for the only you can get help if you make $31,500 a year. You have to be in the poverty line. Thank God I always was able to help myself. I didn't need no help. Now, this here, what I'm trying to recover, nothing yet.
No, I meant about this. Getting your family.
I'm on the further.
Okay.
Now, in our city, by working for the Germans, they just, not too long ago, they had a law that they pay Social Security.
Right.
We just now started getting the German Social Security. About a year ago, we started getting 252 euros a month for the work which we did for the German people, the
Right.
German army. For this I went through, but something else I don't know. Memphis don't have some of these things they have in the larger cities. We didn't even, matter of fact, by coincidence, find that out.
Have you gone through the Holocaust websites to see if they have
I did.
information on
Well,
your family?
up to about 2 years ago, when my eyesight was still 20/20, I had a computer, and I did go through a lot of these names, so now find out
Never found your family.
nothing happened. But I filed papers with the Swiss government. This is why I had, I wished I show you that letter. It's a laughing matter. They tell me in that letter, by you providing all this information, all these papers, automatically this does not designate that you will be approved. See, after doing all this stuff, it's not the situation. So sometimes you feel like, I filed so many papers, so far nothing.
Sure. How are you doing?
Yeah, we're
Good? Okay, you were talking about the tents, finding the person in the theater.
In our tent, there was a person who played in Ararat, in the Jewish theater. So he told me, you know what, on Sunday, we're not going out to work, and these doctors in their tent, I go over there once in a while, they give me an extra piece of bread, a piece of soup, because being the doctors, they had a little more privilege than we did have, the ordinary guys. So they have a little extra bread, you can better yourself. So he take me every Sunday back over there to the doctor's camp, and I used to sing for them. So I got an extra piece of soup, a piece of bread, a soup. I had one of the songs which touched one of these doctors. I remember his doctors, a Czechoslovakian doctor. He cried every time. Every time I sung this song, he cried like a baby because it reminded him about his mother. In that song, I had to sing this song for him every time I went there. He cried. And I assumed this is how I survived because I had typhus. I went through every little thing people can think of. If I'm still here, I don't know how. It is, I feel I had a little better than any rest of the people because when we were laying on our little blankets, we were like sardines put out on both sides. One side, the second side, and in the center was a place to walk through. In the morning, when they woke us up for coffee, some people didn't even get up because the guy died next to you. 104 fever, no medication, nothing. Just if you have to be strong enough to go on your own because you have high fever, I believe, for 3 days, then all of a sudden the fever leaves you, you're okay. But I assume this is how I survived that camp. I was in concentration camp, in slave camp. In the morning, after this, what I designated doing something else besides pushing these dead people. I couldn't take it so much to go out and push dead people with that little wagon to be buried. So I was designated to go out to work. They're taking out most of the people from the camp to work. And we walked I don't know how far, but we walked to a place, I call it the company Moll, M-O-L-L. We were building airplane hangars on the ground from concrete. They had steel wire, and with the steel wire, they poured concrete into it. This was for the Allied forces should not be able to bomb their Air Force on the ground. When I see now Iraq, all of these tunnels they have, I said, I bet you the Germans must have built these tunnels for them because they were real good about creating all of these tunnels with concrete up on the top. So I was carrying 50, or I don't know what, that sack of cement. I was carrying sacks of cement on my back towards from one place where the pile of cement was laying. Two people put the sacks on your shoulder. You had to walk with this all the way back to a cement mixer. They mixed it up, the cement, concrete, and they poured concrete for these hangars. So I worked there for quite a while. Didn't have shoes, just a piece of wood, whatever you can find. You know, the shoes I had were long gone. And the good shoes had to be left alone behind. And till one morning, the authorities, the SS, told us that we're going to liquidate this camp. Everyone take your blankets and go towards the train. And they opened up the barbed wire which we were surrounded with. They opened up a place for us to get out in the back. And we walked towards the train like, I don't know how many people were still left in that camp. Well, that camp in Kaufering was a branch of Dachau. Dachau had 12 concentration camps. This was the only one which was left after the war. So the other of them, the people died out, and they shipped them into this camp. So we walked towards the train. You know, dead people walking. And everybody had their blanket overhead. We walked toward the train. We lay down on the grass, waiting on the train. We waited several days, I don't remember. Finally, the trains came. I remember seeing the trains. In the front of the trains were civilian people. After the locomotive was civilian people, evidently Germans who run away from the areas where the Allied forces coming in. They were trying to ship themselves deeper into Germany because this was in Bavaria, Kaufering, was on southern Germany. So in the back of they still have cattle cars, but the cattle cars were open. They weren't closed up. They were open cars, no ceiling on it. So they loaded whatever they could us into these cattle cars. After about 10, 15 minutes, with the locomotive driving us, there come flyers, start bombing the train. They bombed the locomotive. We all stopped the train. They all got off, and they had gendarmes, of course, in these, watching us. We all befell, get out, and we got out and went off the road away from the train rails. We went and we seen a forest, a little forest. There was a young guy. I don't know how old he must have been. When we got off the train, I tell him, come on. And I taken him with me because I had in mind my brother, which I knew I probably won't see him anymore. I taken him under my wing, so to speak. And we went deep into a forest. And I told him, you know what? I'm not going back, come hell, high water, because I heard a lot of shooting going on, a lot of bombs. I said, it must be the end. I believe something, if they come, they bomb, because many times when we were laying in the concentration camp, I wonder, we seen planes way up high. You look in the sky. God, why don't they bomb this place? Why don't they kill us over here and with them too? Nothing happened. So when they bumped this locomotive, we went off the train. I said, I'm not going back anymore on that train. I don't care what's going to happen. And we went way deep into a very thick forest in with our blankets. And later we heard howling, "Alle come zurück, come zurück." They're howling for the people to come back on the trains. We heard dog barking, and they're howling for the people to come back. I'm not going back. We lay down on the ground, me and that little boy, and I tell him I'm not going back. And it rained. We got wet, didn't care. Hungry and wet. We lay there till that boy said, I don't know, maybe 2 days later, that boy said, I can't take it no more. Let's get out of here. How long can we stay here till we die? We don't go find our corpses even. So we decided to crawl out of there. I could see a little house, a farm, and our soldiers walking back and forth with his rifle on his shoulder. Couldn't understand. Was it Russian? Was it American? Was it anybody else? Was it German? But we couldn't care. It was on my last grasp. So we finally crawled over here, and we raised our hand, going up there. And all of a sudden, we heard a guy talking English. So we knew we survived. Talking English. And you just imagine what we went through. Now we hear the Americans are here. Because on they seen the American flag. So he said, lower the hand, don't worry. He taken us into, couldn't understand a word he was saying. We taken us into, we were full of lies, dirty and hungry and everything else. We had taken into our kitchen. We sat down on the floor. Some of the GIs came and looking at us, and they had the sea ration, used to be a little small can, a green can. I remember throwing down a little can. They thought they're going to feed us. They knew we were hungry. And that boy I had, he thought it's a grenade. The food ration, he thought it was a grenade. It was a can. We never seen any can. So he started howling. He thought he was going. He was so excited, so he started howling. They're finally trying to find a guy who can talk Polish or Yiddish, because that's the only two languages we knew, or German, because Yiddish is a little bit close to, we could understand the German more than the Poles, because I talked German before, because in our store there in Lodz were a lot of German Poles, and they talked German, so I talked about 50-60% German. I understood everything they said to me. So they finally found a Jewish military person who was a doctor in the army, and he talked fluent Jewish. He came in here, he'd explained it's what happened. He said, the first thing, we're going to wash you up, give you some other clothes. And later on, they taken us into a place where they had other people already like us, into a farm, where in this farm were even Russians, Hungary people from different nationalities, where they told us not to eat anything else but farina and milk. And he told us in Yiddish, he said, do not eat anything people will give you, because a lot of you people dying after the war. They lived through all of this, and because they ate the wrong food, their stomach was shrunk. They weren't used to this kind of food, and a lot of them died after the war from eating like human. And on that farm, they had us nothing but farina and milk. We were there, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks. We finally gained a little strength, a little weight. We went out in that little farm, out and looked around. We find other people. We start asking, are there any women alive? Because there were only men in there. We thought, never know there was any women, because, boys always hunt girls. So we looked around and we said, I wonder, are there still women around? So they told us over there in Landsberg, there's a displaced persons camp. If you go over there, there's a lot of people over there like you. So we finally, the doctor who was in charge of this little farm, excuse me, the doctor told us, well, if you be strong enough, we'll take you to this displaced persons camp. So he did. We went over there. This was Landsberg am Lech. And that was a caserne where the German army used to be. And over there they had a displaced persons camp. And over there we had mostly only Jews who, just like our own little country, like our own government, we had our own police. The police was mostly to keep out unwanted people coming in over there. And the police, they had doctors over there, and they had cooks over there. They fed us in the morning breakfast, supper, and a ration every so often. And over there we gained a little strength and everything else. In that camp, I started working as a displaced person, a DP policeman. And so one morning, I heard that they're going to register people to go to another country.
Excuse me 1 second.
I didn't believe I'm going to live that day till this stories.
So you got to the DP
One
camp.
morning, while I had guards at night, early in the morning, someone told me that they're going to open up this office over here. People start registering, going to United States. I said, I'm going anywhere just to get out to Germany. So I registered. And I got home. I told my wife, I was married already then. I married in September 3, 1946, a year after the war. So I told my wife, we're going to America. I said, you're going to America. Who do you have in America? You don't have no one over there. Why would you go? There are people who have family over there, and they still over here, and you're going to America. I said, I registered, I'll go. What do I have to lose? It didn't cost me anything. I just registered. Well, while we are in the displaced person camp, this was like we created our own. They have our own picture shows. We had a theater. Like I said, I done a little singing, and we had a choir. There were about 40, 50 people, and taking charge just like a normal life. So one day, there comes a paper. They called me to go to Munich, because the headquarters from the registration was in Munich. So this from London, about 50 kilometers, I went to Munich with the train. Come to Munich, they told me, well, you are sponsored to go to America. I had to write down, of course, what kind of trade you know, what can you do. But I will not fall to the people's support. But I can support myself. Of course, being in the furniture business, I told them that I am a furniture finisher, and I can also fix stuff, never know what. So he said, well, Memphis, Tennessee. Memphis, Tennessee? Why Memphis? I don't have nobody in Memphis. I don't have nobody nowhere else. But I heard about Chicago, Hollywood, I heard New York. Why Memphis? Memphis, are they the people in the Jews in Memphis? Memphis is a city of it? I could not. But then the guy said, look, don't worry. There is there's no borders over there. You don't like Memphis, you can go to wherever you want to go. I've taken that for granted. So I was designated to go to Memphis. So he told me, you need to go to Memphis because E.L. Bruce used to be a hardwood flooring company in Memphis over here. And he said, since they're woodworking furniture, they thought I'd be able to work. Memphis Furniture Factory used to be also a big factory. He said, maybe I can find employment over there. But they didn't hire nobody when I came over here. So the Jewish Federation sponsored me to go to Memphis. The first several months, the Jewish Federation helped me find an apartment, and I went to work as a furniture finisher. I don't believe if somebody would have told me then that I'm going to sit here and talk about that, I would bank on it that I could not survive that day. But I'm lucky I came to Memphis, and I'm established over here, and of course, right now I'm up in the age, but I worked till I was 70 years old, and I was prosperous, so to speak. I have a family with children and grandchildren. This blessed country of ours tried to help the whole world, but they hate us for us. That's it. Well, that can I tell you?
Mr. Weinreich, I am so honored that you chose to share this story with us.
Well,
I know it was very difficult.
is there anything else you want to ask me?
No, sir, if you'd like to take a couple minutes.
You know, each person has his own what happened to him. Different ways, different eyes, whatever. I know historians probably will come up with other stories, but nobody can deny what these eyes have seen. It's unbelievable what one human can do to the other. People became animals and tear you apart for no reason, only because you were Jews. I thought live and let's live, but that was not the case with us. My family were well established. We had, even at the time, before the war, we knew that the war is coming, that Hitler's coming into Poland. We had customers, even German people. They were Polish, German, ancestry Polish. They came and told my father, Mr. Weinreich, retten we zich. Try to do something about it because, you know, bad times are coming for you. He said, what can I do? I don't have no one else to go in a place. What do I do? Leave everything, leave my family. What can we do? Where will you go? People weren't so mobile like we are over here now. People didn't have no cars for everything. And, the progress wasn't like the United States. Of course, people don't think back. The younger generation today don't look back that 60, 70 years ago, you didn't push a button to get instant everything.
Right.
Today, you got air conditioning, you got heat, whatever you want to. You got coffee, you got everything is the instant living. So, anyhow,
Are you going to be okay to take a portrait right now?
I am okay.
Okay.